Check one. Check.
Good morning. Welcome to this Unitarian Universalist Church, which serves our church here in Birmingham, our church in Tuscaloosa, and all of our folks online. We are delighted you are here for our special 70th anniversary celebration, which is a big deal. Yes. And we have so many wonderful guest speakers who are going to share some memories with you today. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we have rescheduled everything else due to the weather. But I do want to give a special shout out and thank you to Mayor Randall Woodfin and the city of Birmingham, who sanded our drive and our entire parking lot to make sure we could be here. We are right on the border between Birmingham and Homewood, and so those cities like to fight against who has to take care of us, and so we are grateful to be taken care of. So, to whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. To all who are here this morning, welcome home. The prelude prepares us for worship.
Let us take a moment to honor the ancestors of this church, the people who first came together to create a home for liberal religion here in Birmingham, Alabama, and in Tuscaloosa, who worked to raise money for a building, who sat in committee meetings and created bylaws, who chopped and marinated and baked for potlucks, who painted and weeded and pounded nails and washed countless dishes, who gathered to worship, to learn, to grieve, to heal, to serve, to build justice, to transform their lives and the world. We are the recipients of an incredible gift and a beautiful vision. Let us do our part to keep this congregation strong, vital, and thriving for generations to come.
Good morning. I'm Jessica York. I'm your Director of Congregational Life at the Unitarian Universalist Association. And I bring heartfelt congratulations from our President, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, from the UUA Board, and the staff of the Unitarian Universalist Association on the 70 years of being a beacon of liberal religion in the South. This congregation was birthed at a time when it wasn't easy to be liberal in the South. And some might say it's never been easy to be a liberal in the South. And I know right now some of us are wondering if it might become harder yet in the near future. And we have never let that daunt us, because we know in our heart and in our souls that the values we hold dear are life-affirming and necessary to build the beloved community. And because we know that even here in Birmingham and in Tuscaloosa, we are not alone. We will always have the support of the UUA, providing resources like curricula for RE classes and holding campaigns like UU the Vote, offering leadership trainings for congregational boards and youth advisors, and employing staff to work directly with congregations, like your Southern Region staff, which also send their greeting, led by Natalie Briscoe, and your primary contact, Nancy Combs-Morgan and Tyler Coles, and me, your Director of Congregational Life. You have not just our support, but you have our thanks for your consistent presence in the community and the support you have provided to the UUA as an honor congregation in the annual program fund. You know, the UUA is not a denomination. We're an association of congregations who freely agree to work together because we know we are stronger together than we are alone. So here you are, 70 years strong. Know that the UUA is right beside you as you continue to carry this faith into the next 70 years.
Good morning. Am I on? Yes. In the spirit of inclusivity and welcome, greet those around you, especially folks you haven't seen in a while or you may not know or you don't recognize. Folks online, please greet each other in the chat.
Check.
Please find your seats. And then we ask you to rise and join in our opening hymn, number 1026. Our opening hymn that we will sing together is number 1026 in your teal hymnal. If every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom, if every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every man in the world had his mind set on freedom, if every brother stood if every man of every nation, young and old, each generation, held his hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every leader in the world shared a vision of freedom, if every leader in the world shared a sweet dream of peace, if every leader of every nation worked for justice and liberation, holding hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and all our daughters reached in friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more war.
Good morning. I represent the Environmental Justice Task Force, and I'm here to give the Justice Minute today. A few months ago, the Environmental Justice Task Force came up with this idea of a climate tree. And the whole idea of this, we did present this at our Climate Revival service, and I wanted to reintroduce it to you because just as the people who founded this church made this church to create a community, so we want to continue that community and to grow a community amongst us. And we wanted to use this as a sounding board, as something that we can look at and contribute to of how we are, what we are doing in our own lives to help with the climate crisis that we face, and what we can do in our big and small ways to affect change in our own lives. Because as we know, technology is not our savior, and science is not our savior, and solar panels and windmills are not our savior. We are in this together. And this is a way for us to build our community, just as those who built this beautiful structure did it to build community. So I wanted to contribute. So this is something that we have where you can put what you are doing, or if you have a question about anything about the environment or anything, you can ask, and where we can have it as a sounding board. So I am going to start by putting an idea up here, and I wrote, consider Meatless Monday. Go 1 day a week eating a vegetable diet. Reducing meat consumption is a major way to fight the climate crisis that we're facing. So I invite you to look at this when you come here, and I invite you to contribute to it. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Tom Jacobs, member of the board. Our church is supported by those who call our church home, and by those who support the efforts of our church to change our world for the better. If this is your first time with us, please pass the plate. We are just glad you are here. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations whose work reflects UU values to care for marginalized persons, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all. Today we are sharing our plate with the Yellowhammer Fund, a 501c3 abortion advocacy and reproductive justice organization serving Alabama, Mississippi, and the Deep South. They envision a society in which reproductive decisions are made free from coercion, shame, or state interference. A society in which individuals and communities have autonomy in making healthy choices regarding their bodies and their futures, using community education and empowerment, policy advocacy, and the development of systems of mutual aid to ensure that our friends, families, and neighbors never go without the things they need. We appreciate your donations, either by placing them in the plate, by mailing your donation to the church, or by using PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. More information is found in the order of service in the lower right corner. Thank you for your generous support of our church and our Share the Plate recipient. May we give in love and in hope.
Great job, choir. Now is that time in our community when we share what is on our heart, whether joy or sorrow. For those of you online, please share yours in the chat and hold one another in love as you do so wonderfully every week. For those of you in person, you are now invited to come forward and drop a stone in honor or in memory of what is on your heart today, or maybe it is a celebration stone for how far our church has come. Whatever it is, please come forward and honor that this morning. Keep it to yourself. Tell me whatever you wish. Good to see you. Wonderful. Hey, sweetie. Today we celebrate our 70 years as a community and all of the people who have been a part of that along the way. The building, the grounds, all of the things that we have as a community are wonderful, but it is the people of this congregation that make it what it is. And we're so delighted each of you is here this morning, no matter where you came to get here. Today we lift up. Last week I preached about the horrific attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day, not recognizing how close it affected our community. And so I would like to lift up that Drew Dauphin is the great-nephew, but in reality and affection more like the grandson of Mac and Evelyn Dauphin, and he was killed in the attack on New Year's Day. And so we lift up the Dauphin family and all those affected who loved Drew in the midst of that tragic situation. We also continue to lift up Garland Burnett as Patty Falconberry has passed away, for those of you who were not here last week, and we continue to lift up Garland and the family. And we continue to hold all of those who are ill or cannot be here this morning or struggling in our hearts and minds. May we keep one another in our hearts and minds this week in the spirit of community and love. And at this time, I'd like to invite Sharon Swain, our previous DRE, to come and offer the meditation reading.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, followed by a moment of silence. Today's meditation was written by Reverend Jacqueline Collins. Let us be together in silence. Let our hearts listen. Let this house be quiet. For a moment, stretch back in memory to the first time you joined a meeting of this church. It may have been in this building, or in a rented space, or a home, or maybe the old A-frame on Cahaba Road. What was happening then? Were you comfortable, anxious, pleased, hesitant? Remember those moments. Who were the first people you met? Along the way, between that first time and now, what are the most intimate friendships you have formed? Feel the warmth of this community. From back then to now, what have been the important events of your life? Rites of passage, birth, death, dedication, coming of age, weddings, separation, divorce. All that a religious community is privileged to encompass, the connection between people living on this earth. So now, consider the influence of this community on you and your children. We have come to this hour to expand our hopes, deepen our vision, and stretch forth our hand, knowing not what we shall touch, but wanting to link our lives with other lives. We have come to give and to receive. May the flame of our chalice continue to light our way and warm our hearts. May you all be blessed. Blessed be.
So from cups.org, there's a brief history. The Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, CUPS, is an independent affiliate of the Unitarian Universalist Association, honoring goddess-based, earth-centered, tribal, and pagan spiritual paths. UU Paganism is a liturgical and theological community under the umbrella of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Membership in CUPS is open to Unitarian Universalists and those in sympathy with Unitarian Universalist purposes and principles. UU Paganism is a community instilled with specific UU values that include the celebration of diversity and respect for all.
Good morning. My name is Farrah Tatum, and I'm coming to you this morning as the co-chair of CUPS here at this UU. So first of all, congratulations to us for 70 years, right? Yes. We're thankful, first of all, that this church allowed us to form a CUPS group. There wasn't one when we came, and when we found out about it, we didn't even know. We started here before. When we found out that CUPS existed, we went to cups.org, and if you have any curiosity at all, it's a wonderful website. Found out what it was, and we went to Pastor and said, can we do this? And if you know Pastor Julie, you know she tries to say yes whenever she possibly can. She gave us our blessing, and off we went. Not only have we formed a thriving Facebook group with over 400 members in the community, we also meet regularly here. It's a very large population. The person next to you might be a pagan and you don't even know it, because a lot of us are in the broom closet. It's true. After a couple of years, we created an actual chapter, a CUPS chapter here. It's the only one in Alabama, and we have it. Hooray! We'd like to bless the church and the congregation in our way. We ask for blessings on this congregation from the spirits of this land, and we give thanks to those spirits. We also give thanks to our ancestors, the ancestors of all of those present and all those at home. We give thanks for the lessons that those ancestors have taught us. We honor and ask for blessings from the elements, the air that flows around us, that we breathe within us, the waters of all of our births that still flows within our bodies, the earth that makes up our very bones, and the fire that ignites our spirits. We honor the gods and goddesses of all, present and at home. We ask them to bless the steps of this congregation going forward. We honor the great spirit that connects all of us, and we ask that that spirit bless us and remind us of all we share. So mote it be.
Good morning. I'd love to invite any children and youth to come forward. I'm going to scoot back because there's plenty of you. Come on up. I got a story to tell. Hi, friends. And friends that I didn't recognize. Someone changed their hair, and I was very confused. All right. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. So, but that's someone else's PAX. Oh, okay. Just making sure. Just making sure. All right, friends. So I'm going to tell you kind of a personal story today. Cool? Cool? Everybody cool? So we're having this celebration today, right? We've had these special people come talk to us, and Reverend Julie's been telling us about it. We're celebrating our 70th anniversary. It's like a 70th birthday. We're like really old. Sorry. Not that old. You're right. We're very young. Exactly. We're oldies but goodies. Well, so just to be clear, I have not been with this church for 70 years. I'm not that old. But I'm really excited to see some of the people that were here doing the same job that I do now before. They weren't here 70 years ago either, thankfully. Hi, friends. So I'm really excited because all 4 of our special guests today have been religious educators at our congregation at one time or another. Go! So I find that pretty awesome that religious educators stick around and come back for a party. That's actually not as surprising. But did you guys know that I grew up in a UU church just like this? Yeah, for real. Like, I grew up in a church just like you guys are. And when I was your age, I went to the RE classes with my friends, And I sat up front and probably talked too much, kind of like I do now. And I learned all sorts of things about what it meant to be a Unitarian Universalist. Super cool, just like you. And I liked it so much that when I became a grown-up and had a family of my own, after I went to college, I thought, I'd like to hang out with some UU kids and talk to them about what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Ta-da! And so now I do that. It's the best job in the world. And I have been doing it for quite a while. Does anybody want to guess how long I've been doing this? What do you think? 10 years. Close. What do you think, Sylvia? 4. I've been here for 4 years. You're right. What do you think, NJ? At least 4 seconds. What about you, Jasper? 14.6 years. Okay. Carly? 20 years. You're not Carly. You're Lillian. Nathan, what do you think? 15 years. Okay. Ezio? 24. 13.4. Okay. All very good guesses. Oh, wait. Violet, what do you think? 11 years. So, funny story. I have been a UU religious educator 10 years long. So I started out as a religious educator almost 18 years ago, a little bit before Finn was born. Crazy, right? Like, that's a whole grown-up. So anywho, so what was really cool is I started at a church down in Montgomery, and when I went there, the minister I worked with was like, you should go hang out with some other religious educators. And I'm like, sounds great. So I came up here to UUCB, and I spent a day with Jessica York, who was the religious educator here at the time. And she was very friendly and didn't tell me anything bad and helped me so much learn how to do this and continue to help and support me as I was just a baby religious educator. But I remember that day because I thought this place was amazing. I loved this congregation the first time I set foot in the door. I thought, these are amazing people doing amazing work. They're all so friendly and loving and welcoming. Maybe when Jessica, if she ever leaves, maybe I can come work at UUCB. It took me a while because then Sharon came, and I got to meet Sharon. I got to work with Sharon and spend lots of time with her. And then Ruth was here for a while. Alice was before me. But so I got to work with all of these people in that variety of ways. And then 15 years later, almost to the day, I started working here at UUCB. Pretty cool. So I guess kind of what I'm saying is I always knew I wanted to be here with you guys, even when I was other places, because I knew this church had important work to do, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I'm really happy to be here now. So thank you so much for welcoming me into the community. And I look forward to being here for a very long time. And one last thing before I ask you grown-ups to sing us downstairs for some community time. I need to tell you guys something very special, my friends up front. You are the future of UUCB. So you are going to be the ones telling these same stories in 15, 20, 25 years. When we're having another big party to celebrate, feel free to say, hey, you guys remember that crazy lady that used to tell us stories? I'll come back for the party. So thank you all so much, and let's go downstairs for some community time.
In just a moment, you're going to hear some reflections from our special guests, and I wanted to introduce the first one before she came up today. But I also just wanted to say, yes, I recognize that we have a fully woman panel this morning. But I wanted to explain why. When I was brought here by the search committee and we saw the wall of ministers, it was really, really important to me as a woman minister that I was not the first woman minister, and that women ministers have been in this congregation since the 90s, and that this church has been very much supportive of women in ministry. And in Birmingham, Alabama, where I still get looks and question marks and people doubting that a woman can be a minister in 2024, it is so important to me that this church has a legacy of supporting its women ministers and its women who do ministry. So with that, I would like to invite our first reflection from Jessica York, Director of Congregational Life at the UUA. I'm reintroducing, and I'd ask all of our guests to introduce themselves, for our folks in Tuscaloosa especially. But I want you all to know how important it is that we have Jessica here in Birmingham with us. She is an amazing force in our faith tradition outside of these walls, outside of Birmingham, and all over the world. So with that, please help me to welcome Jessica to the pulpit.
In 1997, I was looking for a church home particularly for my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter. You know, that is a familiar story. So many people encounter Unitarian Universalism and walk through our congregational doors for the first time because they want a community in which to raise their child with the values that they are holding. And it's not always easy to find. I was lucky. I had read an article in the newspaper about Reverend Karen Madison, who was the minister here at the time, and the fact that she was doing civil unions for LGBTQ couples. And I said, that sounds like a church I could go to. And so I did. I came with my then husband and my 7-year-old daughter, Ivy. And what we found here was a vibrant home full of warm and loving people who believe that what we do here on earth is a little more important than what we think about what might happen when you die. People who believe that love is the original commandment and that learning how to live that love is our job here on earth as human beings. On the car ride home, my now ex-husband and I discussed the sermon. And I wondered, might this be a religious home not just for our daughter, but also for us? We came back the next Sunday and the journey began. Between 1997 and 2007, the years that I was active here with the church, I witnessed so much that it's hard to know what to share today in reflections. I could talk about Reverend Karen, whose sermons were not only thought-provoking, but also inspiring. I could talk about her activism in the community, work with interfaith organizations, a lot of work with LGBTQ organizations, how she started the Worship Associates program when it was still a fairly new thing in UU congregations to have lay leaders work with ministers and staff on Sunday morning sermons. I could talk about the congregation itself. The congregation built strong relationships with the community, had memberships, and still do, with Greater Birmingham Ministries, with Bridge Ministries, and for many years actually had a line item in our budget every year to give donations to those two organizations. I could talk about that morning in 2003, and some of you I know were here then, when we left our old home, the A-frame on Cahaba Road, caravanned over to this new building that had been built as a result of years of a capital campaign. The sanctuary was empty, no chairs, no pulpit. We formed a big circle in the sanctuary. We held hands, we sang, we blessed this space in the way that you are blessing it now. But since today's theme is a little bit about stories, I wanted to go a little bit deeper with 3 particular stories. But they're going to be quick. They all have a common theme, and I'll tell you the theme now so you don't have to guess about it. The theme is the flame of this church has been handed down, and it burns not just here in Birmingham, not just in Tuscaloosa or in Alabama, but in many places outside of our walls, and really wherever Unitarian Universalism is needed. So, shortly after I was hired as the religious educator, we were having an all-church gathering. It was another party. And Reverend Alice Silty, who had been the religious educator before me, and I were having a conversation. We were talking about youth group. The congregation had a youth group, and then it had gone through a whole year of doing Our Whole Lives, our sexuality curriculum for high school students. And after that, the students were kind of, tired of church, and we were having a hard time getting the youth group started again. And Reverend Alice pointed to a young man in the congregation named Julian Sharp, helping to get the youth group invigorated again, became not only an amazing leader in our youth group, but also an amazing leader in BAGSLE, the Birmingham Alliance of Gay, Straight, Lesbian, Bisexual, Queer, Questioning, and Transgender Youth. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them later. And actually went on to work with the Mid-South District, to serve on the Mid-South District Board as a youth trustee, to serve on the National UUA Board as a youth trustee, and to come back some years later and serve on the board again as an adult trustee, and to earn his Master in Divinity and work for the UUCBHAM. So after starting attending services, I'm the kind of person who believes if you're going to belong to a community, you not only enjoy the privileges of that community, but you have responsibility also to that community. So I looked for places where I could serve. I started teaching in RE because I liked being with children. I started at that place where I think so many of us start, on the coffee committee, to make sure that we had coffee here and to clean up after coffee. I did the cleanup after coffee, not the setup, because I'm really not a morning person, so I couldn't get here that early. After that, I joined the Social Justice Committee. I joined the Worship Committee. I chaired the Worship Committee. And then in 2001, I was hired as the Interim Director of Religious Education, and in 2002 became the Permanent Director of Religious Education. At that time, the only full-time religious educator in a UU congregation in Alabama. When I started, I was part-time, but the church made the commitment to make that position full-time, and our RE program grew. We had a rich and wonderful RE party, and I have many memories from that, of the parties, of the holiday celebrations, including my favorite one, which was the Passover Seder, of family retreats at Camp Kanawalahala, of Woohoo Wednesdays, a time for families to come together during the middle of the week and spend time together, of starting a coming-of-age program, annual youth-led worship services that included bridging, of district youth conferences. The support of this congregation helped me become active in LREDA, which is the Liberal Religious Educators Association. That's the professional organization for UU religious educators in the Mid-South District, as an OWL teacher, and then as an Our Whole Lives trainer. I'm trained as a trainer on all levels of OWL. The district board. I went on to the district board representing youth ministry and worked with the district for many years. This congregation hosted many of the Mid-South gatherings that were happening. So when I needed training as a religious educator and as a non-driver, it was not easy for me to get to Atlanta or to get to other parts of the district. This congregation was fully supportive when I said I would host those trainings so I could take those trainings. Without all of that, I would not be where I am today. I would not have authored the first curriculum in the Tapestry of Faith series. I would not have become the first youth programs director at the UUA, the first co-director of ministries and faith development at the UUA, and the first non-ordained director of congregational life at the UUA. I owe much of those 17 years of service at the UUA to this congregation, to this church. And the church is the people, right? It's all of you. And even though this is a personal story, it's not just about me, because this church also nurtured Reverend Alice, who has gone on to other churches. This church also nurtured Reverend Ruth, who has gone on to service in other congregations. And Julian, this church is currently nurturing Reverend Julie, who is doing great things in the community and who I know is serving in at least one national capacity, working with the UU Ministers Association. So this faith has just spread Unitarian Universalism far and wide and has nurtured more Unitarian Universalist leaders than your average congregation. The third story is another one about the reach of this congregation. So Reverend Karen was very active and a good ally to the LGBTQ community, and the congregation had many LGBTQ members. We also provided space for PFLAG, parents, family, and friends of lesbian and gays. We offered Our Whole Lives on all 6 levels. And eventually we became the home for Bagsley, the Birmingham Alliance of Gay, Straight, Lesbian, Bisexual, Questioning, and Queer and Transgender Youth. That happened because there was a Bagsley group that was not started here, that was active in the city of Birmingham, but they lost a lot of their support. They lost their meeting place, and they couldn't find enough adults to be advisors to make it a safer space for youth to come together. And so Julian Sharp became aware of this and came to the UUA board and to Reverend Karen and me, and quite frankly, he challenged us to see how much we were willing to really live our values. And could we start hosting Bagsley here? Well, we did. And we not only hosted it here, but we found adult advisors, and we provided training for adult advisors, and we found youth advisors and provided training for the youth advisors. And over the years, we had active participation, and then there were times when participation waned, but that flame of Bagsley stayed alive for quite some time, and eventually became the Birmingham, the Magic City Acceptance Center. Some of you may be familiar with their work. But the work they're doing now with youth is basically what Bagsley evolved into. So they're doing fantastic stuff, and we could take a little bit of the credit for that. Thank you so much for letting me share some of my memories of this congregation. There are times that I feel like I should be here a little bit more often since I am in the city and I do work in Unitarian Universalism. Do know that I'm always reading the newsletter. I'm in contact with Reverend Julie and others here at the congregation, and the work that you're doing now is something that I'm still immensely proud of. Thank you.
Standing on my box, I remember so well. And I'm so excited and happy to be here today with you all. And I'm kind of, I don't know, emotional. What Jessica was saying was so moving. And I'm remembering how when I was the director of religious education and Jessica came on board to teach and brought Ivy and At that time, Marion Fintel and I were working. Kathy Hodges had been the DRE right before me. Angela Pruitt was the DRE when I first came here. So I have had the extreme luck of working with some amazing mentors and people in this congregation, and to think that I was able to pass that along makes me feel really proud and really good. I came to this church the first time in 1968, and I was part of a huge LRY, Liberal Religious Youth Group, the Sunday school rooms. Oh, it wasn't this building, it was the beautiful A-frame nestled between the zoo and the botanical gardens on Cahaba Road. And it had a bustling, huge religious education program for every age. And there were 30, 40 people in my youth group. And some of the people here, maybe not today, but at least one or two of you are parents of the people my age. Let's see, Janice was here a minute ago. Anyway, there you are. So I had this fabulous experience. I had moved from California, where I grew up in the Unitarian Universalist Church in San Diego. My family moved to Barranquilla, Colombia for 3 years. And then we moved to Bessemer, Alabama, which I told everybody was way bigger culture shock than moving to South America. So I was so at home again when I got back to the Unitarian Universalist Church, and wonderful friends. And then it was much later when I entered seminary, and I decided to write a history paper about this church because I knew that we had all this rich history during the civil rights time, that I realized that those people that were my friends had lived through, as we were children then, but I wasn't here until 68, but in the early 60s and on through 65, 66, I guess. There was the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. There were all kinds of things had happened, and they never talked about it. So I came here once that had kind of settled down, and I didn't realize that the people I was in Sunday school with and their parents and their families had been part of all of that. And you can read about that in Jean's book. We both wrote a lot about that. The Crutchers, who are no longer here, they called people up and asked them to donate blood. How many of you have read Jean's book? Yeah, it's got a lot of amazing history of what the people in this church did during the civil rights, and it was brave. And I guess, well, I did call Reverend Larry McGinty when I was writing the paper, and I asked him, why isn't this stuff written down? Why am I having to work so hard to find it? And he said, well, we were busy doing things, not busy recording things. And they really were. So that's a really rich history. And then just being part of this, and the history and the stories of a church live in it. It's its legacy, and we inherit it, even if people aren't talking about it. It's something. Jean Weaver was my history professor my first year of college. And I didn't, and I thought that she was going to be here today, and she probably doesn't remember this, but there was this day when I got to class and I didn't have my purse, and I was frantic. And so I went off looking for it, and I came back empty-handed, and I was pretty upset, but I was also kind of embarrassed that I'd made a commotion. And then Jean, who I didn't know at that time, and I'll never forget this. She stopped her teaching, and she looked at me and she said, losing your purse must be an awfully empty feeling. And it was like, oh, she knows how I feel even before I knew what I was feeling. So Jean is an example to me of the kind of people that come from Unitarian Universalist churches, even though she might not have even been here yet then. But later, she was here. I'm not sure when she joined. I just know that I didn't know her at that time. So then I was here until I got married in 1972, and my husband and I moved to Tuscaloosa, where I was part of the congregation that's also sharing this worship service with us. And that was a wonderful experience. And then after 12 years, my husband was moved to Birmingham to work, and so we moved to Pelham. And then I came back to this church, excited to bring my two young children, ages 8 and 4, to this bustling Sunday school that I remembered. And it's over at the A-frame, but anyway, I walked in, and there was a greeter sitting at the door, and she's, the RE program was downstairs, so I went downstairs, and there was nobody, nobody. I came back up, and I said, "Where are the children?" And she said, "Well, I think we have some." Well, I don't know where they were that day, but that was 1984, and they were not there then. So then I just left the kids home, and I came to church by myself for almost a year. And then I found that there were some other people who had children, and they were leaving them home too. So Angela Pruitt was the DRE, and she and I talked, and then I started to teach. And I brought my kids every Sunday, and sometimes it was just me and my kids there. And they didn't want to come. And I would say, "You have to go to church, because if you're not there and nobody is there, then the children who do come will never come back." So you can thank my kids for being the glue to start it back a little bit again. And it did. It grew. And raise your hand if you're out here. I see Julie out there if you taught in RE when I was here. I know Marion and Julie, and then Jessica and Terry. Yeah, and we worked hard, didn't we? We had trainings, and we had potlucks, and we had Murray Fintel, Marion's husband, used to cook food for celebrations for us, and we had Secret Friends Valentine thing, but we can't do that anymore because, Secret Friends is not safe. But back then, it seemed like a wonderful idea. We had Halloween party. It just felt like we were really building something. And at some point, I noticed, and Jean wrote it in her book, that we grew by 10 children every year. And when I think when I finished here, we had 80, or one place in her book says 100. And then, as Jessica tells you, that, and all the transitions were really beautiful. So Kathy Hodges talked me into doing RE by promising me that I could go to the mountain for Religious Education Week for training. Well, I was sold after that. It was a spiritual, amazing, transformational experience, and was the beginning of my path to ministry. So I could go on, and I can't because it's late. But I love this church, and so much of what Jessica says is so true, and it's so important. It's so important that we keep it going, and that the children are not the future, they're the present also, because if they're not here, the other ones won't come. So bring your kids. And then I was ordained here in this church. In fact, this stole that I'm wearing was gifted to me by my mother in a ceremony. It was not this building, it was this church, but it was the other building in, I think, 2000 maybe, September of about 2000. And then I went to Huntsville to serve as their parish minister. And then I kind of retired from there, and I went to Pensacola for a few years. And I guess I'm retired again, and I'm back in Huntsville. But I read Jean's book and absorb the lore, the stories, the history, not of just this church, but of Unitarian Universalism, because I think it has something to offer us that helps make our lives meaningful, productive, and giving. Oh, and while I'm at it, Laura is here with her 2 children, and her mom, Kathy Barabee, taught with all of us back then. And now she's an adult with children in your church. The same way I was an adult with children in your church after I grew up in the RE program. So keep it going, guys. Keep it going. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Reverend Alice Silty, who is a phenomenal force in this church. And now I'd like to introduce Sharon Swain, who is one of our former DREs, who would like to share her reflections.
Good morning. It's great to see so many old friends here and new faces today. My name is Sharon Mendel Swain, and I'm honored to have served as Director of Religious Education at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham between 2008 and 2014. I'd like to start with some words from Deuteronomy that have been going through my head in preparation for this 70th anniversary celebration. We build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves at fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. In 1970, I was born into an interfaith family here in Birmingham. My mother was Christian and my father was Jewish. For those who don't know or don't remember, this was not done back then. And as a result, I have spent much of my life finding and creating spaces that build bridges and foster a sense of belonging. Decades after I was born, I joined my sister-in-law, Amy Mendel, a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, for a Christmas Eve service at the old A-frame on Cahaba Road. At the end of the service, they turned the lights down low, and each person held a candle. You lit your candle from the person in front of you, and then turned around to light the candle of the person behind you, until candlelight filled the entire sanctuary and we all sang Silent Night. It was magic. By the time January 2008 rolled around, I was 37 years old, not a mom yet, and not sure if I was going to ever become one. People at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham welcomed me with open arms. Gerda Carmichael invited me to live upstairs in her home, which I did for a few weeks while she went to Thailand or on another one of her many globetrotting adventures. The hard-working Religious Education Committee, also known as SEEK, was filled with amazing collaborators, looking at you, Melissa Hamley, and many others in this room, Marion Fintel, Holly Hilton. If I leave people out, apologies. Together, we began the daunting task of taking the baton from Linda Barnes and building on Jessica York's legacy. Before long, I got married, and then we welcomed first Leo, then Noah to our family. Both were regular fixtures here for a long time, coming to work with me each day, playing with friends in the nursery, at trunk or treat for Halloween, or at all church retreats. Now they're 13 and a half and 15 and a half, and both are taller than me, believe it or not. They are, unfortunately, very serious video gamers, and so church is not really their thing, but they're still good kids. As the congregation supported me with my own young family, you entrusted me with your amazing children and youth, many of whom are now grown. We dedicated children, monitored toddler squabbles, and helped mend teenage broken hearts. We learned a lot about what it meant to be welcoming to families with children with special needs, and everyone grew from their full participation in the life of the community. Together, as families and as a congregation, we shared stories, struggles, and songs. We did crafts, practiced mindfulness, and planted gardens. We painted walls downstairs, built playgrounds, Trey, looking at you, and outdoor chapels, and even tried planting an orchard. We weathered ministerial and other staff transitions and said goodbye to more friends than most of us cared to count. Thank goodness for Connie Goodbread at the UUA, who provided untold amounts of support, both to keep the congregation and the leadership moving forward and to keep me from quitting. Connie was amazing. We nurtured leaders of all ages, including the late Tommy Thompson, who helped to start our children's choir, Monica Dobbins, who's now a UU minister, and Gail Stratton, who also went on to become an ordained minister. So now, building on all that has come before, it's time for us to remember that we belong to each other. Whether we come to this church regularly or not, we belong to each other. I was going to quote one of my favorite lullabies, but I liked the song the choir sang for the offertory so much, I'm going to quote from that. Perhaps this day the light begins. You are where the light begins. Perhaps it does not begin. Perhaps it is always. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And now I'd like to invite the Reverend Ruth Van Lillian. Please help me welcome her.
Boy, this is a beautiful bunch of Unitarian Universalists. Y'all don't look 70 at all. I'd like to begin by also saying hello to my former parishioners in Tuscaloosa and my current parishioners, since I'm serving as the sabbatical minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Huntsville, and they had to cancel service today, so they are joining us virtually. So, hello, everybody. My family and I started attending here in the spring of 2005. But my connection with this congregation actually goes back all the way to about 1969, when I was in the Montessori preschool program that was housed in the old building. And I also took creative dance classes under the leadership of dear Laura Knox, who was a member here a long time. So I have a lot of memories of that building, along with the few of us, right, who are still part of it, who go back that far. My very first Sunday happened to be during the stewardship campaign, which, if you know my history here, must have been some sort of a prophetic experience. And the testimonial for stewardship was offered that morning by Gene Weaver. And what really struck me as a complete novice in regard to Unitarian Universalism was how she talked about the power of the free faith. I had been Methodist all my life, and I'd been raised by liberals, but I'd never been to a church where they just said out loud, you are free to explore your beliefs here, and we don't have to all agree on everything. Wow. That is a powerful, powerful message. And everyone here can testify to how powerful that has been for your life. So I was hooked, and we kept coming back. And I was here for 14 years. I was on hiatus from being a Methodist minister to take care of my children, the younger of whom is severely disabled. And I got to kind of keep a foot in the practice of ministry through the very generous inclusion by the several ministers that were here during that time. I actually was here during a really transitional time. We went through several ministers in a fairly short period of time, and we had a lot of staff turnover too. We weathered some difficult times then. We even lost our president, Dory Fuchs, just 2 months into her elected time. She contracted meningitis, and I was honored to be asked to step in and serve in her place, and she left us a few months after that. I was here in some capacity, sang in the choir, worked with the worship associates, volunteered in the RE program, and then I was asked to step in as interim DRE. And I was here all through all of that up to the point where our wonderful, passionate, talented, dedicated Reverend Julie came to join us. Yeah, woohoo indeed. And this congregation nurtured me too, just like the folks who've already spoken this morning. It was the most recent interim, Reverend Ed Brock, who really gave me a kick in the pants and said, when are you going to get back in the pulpit? So in 2017, I started that process and received my fellowship and went to serve first at Tuscaloosa. Wonderful, wonderful 3 years with those lovely, lovely people. And then commuted in a strange but wonderful relationship with 2 congregations on the Florida Panhandle. And now really enjoying helping out for a few months at Huntsville. What I'd like for us to remember today is that while all congregations, which are populated by people, human beings, and not angels, all congregations go through bumpy times, all of them. Sometimes they're just little bumps, and sometimes they can be pretty jarring bumps. But there is a wonderful resilience to this congregation. There is a deep, passionate commitment to finding ways to make the world a more just and peaceful place. And where better to be doing that work than Birmingham, Alabama? So all of you are participating in this wonderful community enriched by this powerful history and with all manner of opportunities in front of you to continue to do that powerful work. And the internal work of educating each other, nurturing each other, working together is a very important part of then what we are empowered to do, going outside the walls and trying to make the good, positive changes in the world. And we are at the beginning of some stormy weather in this country. And therefore, each of you is more important in your connection to this congregation than you have ever been. So please, keep the energy up. Keep the hope alive. Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and Huntsville and the world need us more now than ever before. I love you all. Congratulations on your anniversary. Thank you.
When we initially planned this service, the committee and I, this was the end. This was bringing us into the modern era with all of these beautiful stories shared in our post-civil rights experience church. And the part that you're missing because the weather did not cooperate for some of you is that history of those civil rights stories. And so I'd like to encourage you, now that our dinner is rescheduled, to come to the dinner this Friday, and you're going to hear from other voices as well of what our history is, and we're going to celebrate with the Carlton Reese Memorial Unity Choir and a bunch of other folks. So please be sure to come on Friday to get that past experience, and we'll just have to put it all together in our minds. I want to give thanks to all of those who have come before us, those who created this community from nothing into something, because that was a powerful moment. For those who have served this community, whether on staff or in a volunteer capacity, who have donated time, talent, and treasure to build our first church building and this, our second, and all of the other time, talent, and treasure it takes to keep it going. Those who have nurtured our children, who have cleaned up after potlucks or coffee, who have set up or torn down tables, all the other tasks essential to make this community function. We need each of you. Each of your stories is so important. And knowing today was going to be filled with so many memories, I wanted to fill in some things from the last 6 years. As Courtney pointed out, she has been a DRE as old as Finn is. I have been at this church as old as Ezio is. I came to this church and started 8 months pregnant. So he is literally the embodiment of how long I have been here. And I just want to point out some other things that have not been lifted up. I'm excited to hear all of the things that have happened that we are still doing and still carrying on. That's really exciting to me. But I want to point out a couple other things just very quickly. The first being that before I got here, the church made a commitment to separate religious education from the church service. Now that is a benefit to our teachers who get to be a part of the whole church service, and it's a benefit to our children because they get to be in here with us for the majority of the service, and then they go downstairs and do their learning and religious education. That is a huge thing, and most churches are not willing to make that commitment because it's harder to pull off. It's harder to make that commitment and say, we're going to stay longer at church than just an hour. We're going to commit to our children that we're going to be here and we're going to focus on them and our own adult spiritual enrichment during that second hour as well. We also changed our church governance right before I got here to allow for more growth and health when it comes to how our church is governed. And I'm just astonished with how healthy our board is right now and the journey that it has taken to make that a commitment, and you all have all been a part of that. We have also updated our church facilities with a security grant from the federal government, which is really, really important. It allowed us to have a fence around our playground so people can't look at our kids. It allowed us to update our locks, so if somebody needs to get into the church at a random hour, they can just text me, and I don't have to go up and give them a key. That's really awesome. We have new parking lot lights to keep everybody safe. We have grown our church community. We have survived a pandemic, and we are growing again. We have been the facility to foster at least 3 nonprofits that I'm aware of in my time here. Nonprofits start at this church, we are their container, and then they go out and do the good work. That's amazing. We have also renewed our welcoming congregation status. We do that every year. Every year we make a commitment to our LGBTQIA community that we love you, we want you to be here, we want you to be included at all levels of participation. And that's a really big deal. And as we've talked about, our CUPS community, the fact that we have a thriving pagan community in our church again is a beautiful thing. We've also committed to be a green sanctuary by 2030, and we have written proclamations at our church to say that this church can believe, because of our democratic process of voting, that we affirm that Black Lives Matter, and we affirm Medicaid expansion. Sorry, my lungs aren't cooperating. Yes, that's a good thing. We have also increased our impact and influence in the community, which is something that Virginia Volker charged me with when I was asked to come here. And Virginia was did not dodge that. She was very direct about how she expected some big things from me. And it is really hard to come into a church where the founding minister was literally crawling through the window of the 16th Street Baptist Church. That's some big shoes to fill. And so we stand on the shoulders of those giants. We stand on that history, and we have to remember that there is still work yet to do. And so we are at every single march, and we are speaking and represented at every single march. And while I can't say it out loud because we are concerned about what's happening next week, I invite you to look in your order of service for a very important flyer. And I hope you all will be there. We have also been in the media. We have started a dry goods pantry, and we have lots of community partnerships that we have built. And when I got here in 2018, we decided to make Share the Plate a weekly endeavor. And I just want to share that on average, our Share the Plate recipients receive about $1,200, which over the course of 2024, this church donated over $14,000 to other nonprofits in Birmingham as part of our community partnerships and love. So I invite you, those of you who are already a part of our history, those of you who are a part of our past, those of you who are here today, you are all part of our future. Let's go out and make a difference for the next 70 years. Amen.
Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 113 in the hardcover hymnal, and it's "Where is Our Holy Church?" If you'd like to join the church this morning, please come forward during the closing hymn. As Reverend Julie said, due to the weather this past weekend, some of our 70th anniversary planning has been postponed. Our dinner will be this Friday, January 17th at 6 p.m. We'll need folks to help redecorate. I don't know if anybody saw the pictures online, but someone had worked really hard. If your plans changed one way or another and you can't come, or now you can come, please feel free to join us for this special event. And we'd like everyone to update the RSVP. Our bus tour to the Legacy Museum has been rescheduled to Saturday, January 25th. Please update your RSVP here as well. Remember, if you can help contribute to help offset the cost, that would be so great, because we're still lacking a little bit of funds. We will send out an ACE this week with an upcoming memorial services and volunteer needs. Please be watching for this. January 19th is our Reproductive Justice Sunday. Please join us to honor reproductive justice work in our community and world with special guests from Yellowhammer Fund. We're also collecting diapers for Yellowhammer Fund, so bring diapers of any size by the end of January. If it's easier, you can have them shipped to our church. Oh, that would be good. On January 26th, following the service from 12:45 to 4:30, all high school students are invited to participate in the Interfaith Youth Tour. Registration's required. Sign up your students today. Please use your connection card. Notify the office of any changes to your addresses or address or email, and we want to stay connected, and our staff does read these every week. And now we have some special announcements. Which one of you wants to go? Okay, Reverend Julie.
We were hoping to have a showing of Bending the Ark Origins after church this morning, but with all the winter chaos, we aren't quite ready for that. So we're rescheduling that till next Sunday after church. And if you have not seen our church documentary about how Unitarians were involved in the civil rights movement, I really encourage you to stay after church next week. It is 90 minutes long, and we'd love to provide sandwiches for folks. So if you're interested in staying and watching the film next week, please write that on your connection card so we know how much food to order. Thank you. And we will also have cake after the service next Sunday. We had lots of wonderful celebration plans, and the weather did not cooperate. So thank you for your flexibility as we adjust.
Yes, the weather threw us for a loop these past few days. I'm Julie Nicholson-Morgan, your board president. So Mary Ann Plant told me, with the weather and all that, we're just going to roll with it. So I want to thank you all for rolling with it with me and Reverend Julie as we were trying to navigate all the information we were getting and making the right decisions. I also want to thank everyone who's already made donations for the 70th anniversary celebrations. It's been much appreciated. And but here's the but, as Patty said earlier, we are still short some funds. So let's look at this delay as an opportunity for, for those of us who are able to make additional contributions so that we can make the dinner available to anyone who would like to attend, as well as the bus tour and the tour, the bus trip and the tour of the Legacy Museum. So once again, thank you to everyone who's already donated. You can make those donations through our usual means, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. Just make sure you notate that it's for the 70th celebration. So thank you very much.
All these tall people. In honor of our legacy and of our ancestors, let us carry the flame forward as we extinguish the chalice with these closing words by Elandria Williams. Elandria was a powerful, bright, lovely young woman who we lost just a couple of years ago. She was Unitarian Universalist, grew up in the Knoxville Church, Tennessee, and was headed for really powerful leadership with racial justice and all kinds of inclusivity type ventures. And so these are words that she wrote. The history and legacy of Unitarian Universalism are shaped by the ancestors in our congregations. We are part of the connective tissue that holds the legacy and future of our faith. We are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. We are the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the McCarthy era and the civil rights, women's and queer liberation movements. We are the survivors and beneficiaries of youth-led and youth-focused beliefs and programming that encouraged us to be change makers, boundary pushers, and institutionalists, all at the same time. We are and will be the ministers, religious educators, congregational presidents, organizers, and social change leaders our faith has led us to be. We wear our faith as tattoos on our bodies and in our hearts as testaments to the blood, tears, dreams, and inspirations of our community, ancestors, and elders.